Thank you. Cassie, are we hearing me?
Yes.
Excellent. Cassie said I gave her so many pictures that she was going to give me the clicker. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about Raymond Anderson, who wrote the daily inspiration in this month's Science of Mind. And I have to tell you, he's been kicking my spiritual mind, religious science rear end for 8 days already. In particular, when he says, can you be convicted of he doesn't use this language, I interpreted him. He says, can you be convicted of being a religious scientist? In other words, if you are you letting anybody else know, or are you still keeping that a secret? But I'm going to talk about three things today. I'm going to talk about hope, being an illegal alien, and expansion. And I'm going to start with Eleanor Roosevelt, who's got from the cruise ship recently we were on. The purpose of life is to live it, to taste it, to experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and richer experiences. Sounds like True Colors, sounds like all the music we've heard so far this morning. Nelson Mandela said, part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed toward the sun, one's feet moving forward. There are many dark moments when my faith in humanity was sorely tested, but I would not and could not give myself up to despair. Excuse me. And lastly, and this is from today's reading, if you want to know where I found it, is from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I'm not sure who that is, but he says something important. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. Hope acts. It serves, heals, comforts, and it speaks truth because it has no other choice. So hope. Have you ever said, I hope so? We hope so? Do you have any conviction behind that hope? Do you have any stuff and juice and really, really put some effort into that? You know, back when I was learning about prayer treatment, we talked about treat and move your feet. In other words, do a prayer and then actually do something in the direction of. You know, the prayer line would get calls from people saying, I'm looking for a job and I can't find a job. I'm looking, I'm praying and getting prayer. And it's like, so have you applied for any jobs? Well, no, I'm just praying for it. And I think hope is that ways too. We can have sort of the idea of, well, I hope so. Or you can be actively pursuing hope. Story in Jan and my lives of a dear friend of hers, her 7-year-old grandson, at the time he was 6, he just turned 7 2 weeks ago, I think it was diagnosed with brain cancer, stage 4 brain cancer last August. And his parents are in what I would call active hope. They're taking him to the doctors, they're finding new treatments, they're on their way, I think, this morning already, or later this afternoon, to Memphis, to St. Jude's, where they will be taking him for the umpteenth time for scans and tests and prognoses for what can be done. But they have not sat idly by hoping Lucas gets better. They've been pursuing it. They've been trying things. They take care of him. And his parents, Pete and Andrea, I have to say, the first time I met them with Lucas, and he could barely walk, and you could understand him, but you had to work at it. He was teasing his grandfather. He was teasing other people in the room. He was eating snacks. He was, quote unquote, like a normal person. doing all the things we would hope he could do and enjoying his cousins, playing. We saw him again this past weekend. He's not doing quite as well as he was back then, but still has a sense of humor. He went to an event we just heard yesterday. Time flies. And he was described as having a sense of humor, having a good time, enjoying himself. Now, he's in a wheelchair. He weighs about 40, 45 pounds more than he did when he was first diagnosed because of all the steroids and so forth that he's taken. But his parents will tell you that there's something out there that's going to help him. That is hope. So the next time you say, I hope so, are you putting in the effort that Lucas, Andrea, and Pete are putting in, and his surrounding family, because there's two sets of grandparents, actually kind of three sets because they're divorced, so they've got extra, kind of like I am in my kids' family. And friends like us. So when we start to think about hope, we talk about thinking about moving forward, this idea of true colors. How do we let our true colors shine through? How do we let that happen? Well, first it starts with, we got a cartoon on our text, and it's two older ladies saying, one of them saying, I'm going to clean this up. One of them saying, are you too old to do anything yet? And the other one says, yeah, I'm too old to give a, you can fill in the blank. Well, what if you started with being too old to give a? When Jan and I were getting together, we said, well, we're not going to get married, blah, blah, blah. What were they going to say? What are this one going to say? And it was like, who gives a? It's, are we happy? Are you happy? Are you doing what lifts you up, that rises you up in your life and your way of being? This is a friend that I've made on the streets of Sarasota, who's one of those guys that does a Tin Man thing. I had to show these off. These are Jan's orchids. So we went on an expansive trip. We took a cruise ship, crossed the Atlantic to Barcelona. We had all sorts of experiences. The thing that we didn't know was how we were going to go from Barcelona to Alicante, Spain, to Malaga, Spain, to Heathrow in the UK to get to what I just showed you the picture of, the Queen Mary. Well, that's why I'm not sure what happened to my talk title, but it was Planes, Trains, Automobiles, and Ships. So we did all of those things. Into Alicante and realized that there was no way we were going to get there to the place we were staying on an Uber, because it turned out to be about 60 miles away, and I think we'd still be paying for that, whereas a rental car had a defined start and stop on the expense. But we had what I would call an expansive spirit. This gentleman playing the piano, we met our first day on the Queen Mary and spent the rest of our trip. There was a group of people, I'm talking about true colors here. This was a group of people that, about 150 of the ballroom dancers who decided to show up on the ship in Art Deco clothes. I mean, would you walk down the street in Art Deco clothes? Parade around. The lady on the left is trimming my eyebrows in a bar in Malaga after she's had 3 pints of ale. Crazy Irish woman. The next door is a fellow that we met the next night. He and Jan started talking about, I'm not telling any tales. I'm going to be 72 on my next birthday. He says, I'm going to be 72 on my next birthday. Well, what month? September. What day? The 8th. What year? 1953. So that's why we have a picture with him. And just some of the stuff we saw that was sort of mind expanding. We saw a lot of gelato there on the right. saw it and consumed it. But it was diverse. We saw all sorts of people. You know, the one thing that Valerie reading, thank you for that so much, that I would disagree with, it's not our differences that we don't appreciate, it's our similarities. It's our similarities. Anybody not get out of a bed this morning or some proximity of it, you know, even if it was the lounger chair or the sofa? Maybe you put something in your mouth, had some water, had some bodily functions you had to take care of, hopefully brushed your teeth like I did. I mean, we were very same. I mean, we walk or we get moved by wheels or whatever. We get from one place to another. I mean, there's more about us that is absolutely alike than is different. We have a few ideas each that might be something we could argue and discuss. Other than that, we're vanilla. So what's going to make you not be vanilla? What's going to turn you into the colors that expand you out of who you are, that move you to that place where your hope becomes an active hope, an action that you take to move forward in your life, in your world, in the circle of friends that you have? Yeah, crazy stuff. Second day on the cruise ship, sit down next to this couple. We're having a conversation with them. The two ladies start talking. Next thing you know, they're looking face to face. And Jan says, "Did you work at Sarasota Memorial?" And the woman says, "Jan Mock?" I mean, we're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You know, we're not sitting in Sarasota where they worked together 40 years ago, where Jan was her supervisor. They were living in they're living in Phoenix. They're not even close. So who are you going to see? Who's going to see you? Somebody's always watching, and I don't mean that in a sinister kind of way, but each and every one of us is an example for someone else. I mean, there are people that have told me, you know, when you said, when you did, when I saw you doing X, Y, Z, and I'm like, oh my God, people are actually watching that? There's a train schedule. No, this is that cathedral that's still not done in Barcelona. Beautiful, but it's still not done. Oh, that's my friend in at the tapas bar. Not topless, tapas, T-A-P-A-S. Jeez, people. There's some hope there, I think. Oh, we just had fun. And then at the end, we had that welcome sight. But in the middle there, we had taken the cruise ship through the Straits of Gibraltar. So when we were in Spain, we thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to go down and see the Rock of Gibraltar? So we took a bus. Was it 2.5 hours on the bus? You know, that's always fun. We get down there, we're standing in line because you got to go through the border check and all that kind of stuff. And we notice a couple in front of us isn't going through. And they're being asked to stand aside. Well, actually, he was being asked to stand aside. His wife was like already gone. And then they're telling him something about, well, you can't come in and whatever, because, you know, the Rock of Gibraltar's in a United Kingdom territory, so you have to leave Spain. So they got his wife back. Well, it turns out that the two of them and the two of us hadn't had our passport stamps when we got off the cruise ship. If you're taking a cruise ship, make sure that somebody stamps your thing, because we were illegally in Spain. So then we had the worry. So we couldn't go across the border into Gibraltar because they had no proof that we'd been in Spain. So we couldn't come back. So we had a choice. We could stay in the town on the other side of the border from Gibraltar and enjoy ourselves, or we could get stuck in Gibraltar with the macaque monkeys. We decided to stay in the little town. And we had a great time. This is where, some people say, oh, you're making lemonade out of lemons and whatever. No, we just had a good time. We said, this is a new little town. We haven't been here before, and we can see the Rock of Gibraltar. It's a big sucker. It's over there. If you're not from California. California has an equivalent called Morro Rock, which is the same kind of thing, just a big tall thing that's sort of some giant threw the rock in the thing. Anyway, but we had a fear that maybe we wouldn't get out of Spain when we needed to fly over to the UK to take the last leg of our trip. So we sort of had a little bit of nail biting as we went through the airport, and we got through the one place and showed the passports, and we thought, we're in. And then we came to another border control spot. And we're like, but all of that expanded our experience. All of that took us to a space of who are we and what are we about? Are we sort of wistfully hoping about things, or are we moving forward and taking action in ways that we can, that we enjoy with our life? And to me, this fits this month's theme of In Living Color, because in living color, we are expressing ourselves in all sorts of different ways. We had a office administrative assistant back in the 70s. Audrey was from the UK. And if you take a letter over to Audrey and say, Audrey, I'd like this out with 3 copies by the end of the day. Now, mind you, this was pre-computers. This was sort of barely this electric typewriter age, so things were carbon copied and all sorts of good stuff like that. You didn't want to make a correction because you'd have to change, retype the letter and hopefully do it flawlessly. And so, we'd like to have this, before the end of the day. And she'd look at you and say, you're dreaming in Technicolor. And I think that, so in color, are you dreaming in Technicolor, or are you dreaming in black and white? Are you living in black and white, or living in color? And I'm not saying you have to take big deal trips. We did that because we could. But what would take you out of your norm? What would take you from where you've been saying, I wish, I hope, to I have? And this is not a greedy thing. This is a thing that says, how do you fully express in the world? How will somebody know that when they come up to you and say, oh my goodness, you look so different, or you're doing something that's so different from what you used to do, or whatever it might be. And it's like, well, I took action. I've wanted to do this for a long time, and I decided to take a step forward. I started to move forward on the things that I've been hoping about, or wishing about, or dreaming about, or what it is. Because, if it's just a dream, we're in our head. And sometimes when we're in our head, we get a little cuckoo, right? You ever have a thought that just keeps going round and round and round, and you can't get rid of it? Well, either you got to do something about that, or figure out that it just makes no sense anymore. So, what are we doing? Where can you move from point A to point B? It doesn't have to be across the room. It could just be, half a step. But where are you moving? Where can you move? Where can you express your colors? Where can somebody say, I'm seeing your true colors, so Cassie can sing you the song? We're moving every day. See, that's one of the things I liked about the reading, is even when you don't make a decision, you've made a decision. Somebody says, do you want this or want that? You don't decide, guess what? You get whatever they decide, or do you want this or not? You don't decide. Most people are not going to give it to you anyway. And then you say, oh, but I wanted that. So let's not be in that place with life of saying, oh, I really wish I said yes to that. I had something like that not too long ago for myself. Because one of the life lessons I learned growing up was you don't need that. Ask for something and be told, you don't need that. Anybody ever hear that? Yeah. So like to burn that tape, to burn that idea, you don't need that. That's too much. You don't need to spend that much money. It's like, according to who? Now, y'all I'm not saying to go outside your budget. I'm just saying within your budget, make decisions that expand your life experience, expand your experience with your friends and family, whomever it is that you enjoy being around. How can you live that more expansively? How can you step up to another level? Because that would expose you as a religious scientist. Okay? Because religious scientists, if they're really living the teaching, have an expanding life. There are things happening all the time. There are things that you're contributing not only to your own life, but to other people's lives. I remember I got scolded. Some of you might remember Pat and Jim when they used to do the music back here, back in the early 2000s. And one day they came to me and they said, after Sunday morning, they said, we need a prayer because we're selling our house and we wanted to sell fast. I said, okay. So I did a prayer with them, stood right about there. And saw them, didn't see them until the next week. And I said, well, how'd it go? And they said, really well. We got and accepted an offer by 5 o'clock that day. I was like, wow, that's impressive. Isn't God good? And then, I don't know, a year and a half later, they came to me with the same request. And did the prayer again. And I think I saw them 2 days later, and I said, how'd I do? And they said, took until Monday night. Now, I'm not saying that I did that. I'm sure they had a whole bunch of other things like the right price on the house and all that other kind of stuff. What I am going to say is if you truly believe that the prayer that's being done for you is going to have an effect, it will. Because you've just changed your own belief system. You've changed your mind so that your mind can live more fully in the reality that you're looking for. So as you have a hope, as you have a dream, as you have something that you're desiring to do or haven't done for a week, a month, a year, do it. Find a way to do it. Find a way to move past what's ever holding you back, because that's the thing that's keeping the color wheel off your life. And we want to expand into that new space, that new way of being, that new energy that's going to change not only you, but the world around you. There's an old story about how to change the world. The simple answer to it is change you. If we start with the intelligence, you sitting in each one of these chairs, and make a change there, the world will be a different place. Let's take this all into prayer. This is one of my favorite parts. Oh boy, I get music while I pray. So as we take these words, this message, this idea of stepping higher and expanding higher, starting with the idea and the knowing that God is this infinite space, this infinite activity, this infinite energy that flows and moves throughout the universe and expresses itself right here as each and every individual sitting here, as each and every individual that is surrounding us in the neighborhoods, in the towns, in the cities, in the world. It is all God. It is all good. It is all flowing and moving And as each one of us is an individual expression of that, we have the full capacity to step forward, to express ourselves in new and stronger and different ways every day. We have the strength to be and do what we want to do. We have the intelligence to be and do and what we have and do. We have the time, the space, all of the things that we need. Because we have God. We have that infinite power that is flowing in, through, and as us in every moment. If you just take and imagine that you put your arms up in the air like a big funnel and you're just allowing that infinite flow to simply come down into you, flow over, pressed down and overflowing. None of us have the excuse that we don't have enough energy. None of us have the excuse we don't have the infinite intelligence at our hand. It is there. The answers are there when you seek them. The answers are there when we simply open ourselves up to know that they are coming our way. So I know that there is a healing happening here, a healing in the understanding of who and what we are, a healing in the understanding that we are that infinite creation of the one, and in it, as it, and of it, and that one life is God. That one life is perfect, and that one life is you and I in every moment. So I'm grateful to know this truth for each and every one here. I'm grateful to speak it. I'm grateful to release it into the law where I know that it is indeed already done, for perfectly formed right here and right now. And so with great and grand and glorious agreement, we can say together, and so it is.